Hi,
My name's James McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Welcome to Then and Now. This is Jim Amann, former Speaker of the House. I'm here with one of my favorite people in the legislature, Deputy Speaker Bruce Morris. I had the honor of serving with Bruce in the legislature. From the day he walked in, he was a breath of fresh air, someone that I knew that was going to work hard for the city of Norwalk, but also be someone that will work hard for the whole state of Connecticut. And he didn't prove me wrong. I also had the honor of serving with his dad. It runs in the family. Honor, someone that has integrity, and someone tries to do what is right for the citizens, not only for his hometown, but for the state. Bruce, welcome. So happy to have you here today.
Speaker Amann, it's my honor to be here with you.
It's great to be here on Then and Now. It's a show that I enjoy doing because I get a chance to talk to former colleagues and colleagues that, even though political colleagues, maybe some that I didn't necessarily serve with. With you, I served with you, enjoyed everything we did together, and so glad to see now that you're making a decision to run for mayor. Let me ask you a question, Deputy Speaker. Why mayor and why now?
Well, as you know, Speaker, we accomplished some great things under your leadership and even subsequent to that. Right now, we're in the toughest time in the city of Norwalk. In fact, across the state, but Norwalk in particular is a city that is in transition. We've done a lot of development. We've got a lot of millennials that are coming in, but there's been no real planning for the development that's going on. And quite frankly, I take a look at the fact that in 2006, when I ran and you were Speaker, there's a number of promises that I made. I told the people, says, listen, I was concerned about education, the achievement gap, and the fact that we weren't probably even being funded with ECS. And I said, I promise, I'm going to go make changes to ECS. I'm going to do something to reform our education system and the achievement gap. I'm proud to say today that for every year that I've been there, I've increased the ECS, which has helped us with our property taxes. And certainly with education reform, the Education Reform Act of 2008 did that. Healthcare. You were instrumental. We were all there together. It was about healthcare access. We expanded Husky. We were the first state to have an exchange. We've done phenomenal things. Promise fulfilled. I talked about the fact that we're spending 4 times more money to incarcerate than we were to educate. Criminal justice reform was a priority of mine. Well, today I'm glad to say we've got thousands less inmates inside of our prisons. That we've raised the age. We're now treating youth, no longer treating them as adults. Another promise, and a lot more I can go on and on. But ultimately, even affordable housing, which is a big issue in this state, these are like the things I promised they were priorities. Affordable housing, I made certain that there's additional money to set aside through CHFA to do housing for those at 35 and 65% median income. So now, here we are in 2017. Been an accomplished legislator, fulfilled my promises, come out of the worst recession of 2008, a state that's having a difficult time as we sit here right now, getting a budget passed. We kept cities whole during all that period of time. We retooled, we reinvested in the state with Jackson Labs. We realized we could no longer rely upon the financial services sector to do things. However, with all those changes, the cities did not follow up. They didn't pay attention to trends and things that we're doing. So I'm concerned when we have a city like Norwalk, an affluent city, but not totally affluent. Some people think we're on the Gold Coast. We've got nothing but tax money to give away. We don't. We're a city that needs to be more transparent with our government. So there's a couple of things I'm running on right now. One of them is the fact that economic development, because all the development we're doing really is not planned. It's causing us to have more millennials. And that's not that that's a bad thing, but we don't have the proper infrastructure and things to support that. City is changing for education. We're pointing the finger at Hartford. I'm of the mindset that no, a city like Norwalk and many others can become self-sustainable. So I want to be that mayor that can do that through private-public partnerships. And I can go on, but the big thing is, Mr. Speaker, we're in trouble as a city if we don't plan for the next 10 years.
You're so right. And Bruce, you hit a couple great areas of need. So obviously, when I asked you that question, why now? So you feel right now that Norwalk, maybe compared to, as you pointed out so eloquently, compared to the rest of Fairfield County, needs to be that sort of leadership now. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit more?
And again, so the why now.
Yeah.
The trends, again, that the state is moving towards. Quite frankly, we've done a lot to try to move towards regionalism. Our current administration has done nothing to work with that, but that's part of what we need to be doing. State has done so. Why now? We're recognizing as a state that we need to do more with VOTEC. There isn't anything happening in our city to help support that and recognize that we need to have jobs for the future for our kids. Where our school system, one of the most important things going, and we do a lot to invest there. However, our own kids cannot afford to live in the city of Norwalk. Affordable housing has always been an issue in the city, but no one has been deliberate about how we address those needs.
So that's a great. Why don't we concentrate on that for a moment? So housing, and I'm going to give you a Milford representative's perspective on Norwalk. You're darn right. When I think of Norwalk, West, I put you in the same category as Westport, Fairfield, and it's about people being educated on each one of others' communities. People would be surprised that Milford, they might see as a middle class or upper middle class. That's not really true either. We have our pockets of poverty. So elaborate, why do you think housing is an important issue for the city of Norwalk? And why you are the right person to help on that issue?
Very important. Without good housing, a kid going to school, with all our investments we're doing for kids going to school, if the housing that you're in is densely populated with other people who are similarly impoverished, all right, that already sets you back for your education. Right now, there's a report just recently came out in Fairfield County is the worst for the income gap. In Norwalk, one of the worst. Between the rich and the poor, the gap is getting larger and larger. Our housing policies make a big difference there. Quite frankly, if we have sound housing policy, it can help us reduce the achievement gap because you need to have inclusionary zoning. That's something I advocated for in 2006. I've not been able to accomplish in the city of Norwalk because I'm not the mayor, I'm not on the common council. On our mayor, I will do more to push for inclusionary zoning, similar to what we're doing at Washington Village. Housing is key to education. It's actually important to healthcare. It's integrated with so many other different factors that affect us.
You are.
And I'm sorry, and one more reason why I'm the best person to do it. I represent the 140th district, which is the absolutely most socioeconomically diverse part of the entire city. It is one of the most socioeconomically diverse and densely populated areas of the entire state.
Bruce, I have to tell you that, again, you have a district that has such a need. We have needs in City of Milford too, but certainly not at the scale that you've had to deal with in the great city of Norwalk. But I agree with you. I think, as far as I can't even fathom or imagine having to grow up without good housing, without having good shelter, a good roof over your head, having to maybe live out of a car or a homeless shelter. So God bless you for working so hard on those issues. And there is a need. And unfortunately, right now in America, there are the haves and the have-nots. And we are so glad that we have a champion like you to do that.
Yeah, just for example, when you do a housing policy and zoning policy, South Norwalk, even though it's an economic generator, If you take a look, we've been arguing for the last year. We have contractor yards. We have a halfway house is just dumped inside of South Norwalk. That's why you need to have a mayor that says, no, South Norwalk is an economic generator for us. We need to invest properly, and I'm going to make certain we have housing and zoning policy that works well in South Norwalk, in the entire city of Norwalk.
Bruce, I'll tell you that I'm so glad that we have you up in Hartford, but I'm going to be even more excited when you become the next mayor of Norwalk. Folks, again, this is a great leader and someone that you should be supporting, and someone that I'll be working hard for down in Norwalk. You'll see me down there knocking on doors. But for now, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back in a moment.
Hello, I am your proud superintendent, Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez. I am leading the crucial process of reimagining and restructuring our school district. I need you, all of you, to be significant partners in our process. We are doing this imperative work to deliver on our commitment to ensure improved student outcomes and equitable access to resources for each and every one of our beautiful and capable students. When we have completed this process together, we will hold in our hands a stronger, more equitable school district designed to serve all students well, a plan built by the entire community that will benefit the entire community. We at Hartford Public Schools are coordinating the process, but you, the community, families, students, teachers, and all of our stakeholders are the voices and the minds that must inform this work. By sharing your thoughts, you will help to co-create our district model. Our work together, which takes place over the coming months in community meetings with families, partners, and schools, will culminate in the presentation of recommendations for district models for excellence, different ways in which the district can be reimagined while ensuring the health and viability of our neighborhoods, and continuing to provide access to opportunities and services for our families and students. For news about meetings and ongoing updates on our process, please visit our district website at www.hartfordschools.org.
Welcome back. I'm Speaker Amann from the award-winning show Then and Now. Again, we're here with Deputy Speaker Bruce Morris, who's running for the mayor of Norwalk. Bruce, love talking to you and love seeing what you stand for, the issues that you fight for. So why don't we talk about one that is pretty important to all of us, and that certainly is a good education and access to a good education. I think those are two important things. You know, people think about education, it's kind of an automatic, people think. In fact, we know that sometimes access to good education is not always a level playing field. Why don't we elaborate on the things you've done for education, not only for all the citizens of the state of Connecticut that you've done so well, but certainly for your hometown, the city of Norwalk.
Great, thank you so much, Speaker. Education for me is fundamental to everything else.
Absolutely.
I don't care whatever you talk about. If you have a good education, you're able to succeed in life. You're a great critical thinker. You're a great contributor to society. And it's the biggest part of our budgets most of the time. Biggest thing that we end up having arguments about. So for me, let's first talk about what I've actually accomplished. Okay, I alluded to it a little earlier, but let's be very clear. If I just heard last night, it was great to hear that City of Norwalk has reduced its achievement gap by 1/3.
Excellent.
Well, I'm glad to say that largely that's a result of my work with the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. We have an initiative that's called CK3LI. It's Connecticut Kindergarten to Third Grade Literacy Initiative. Because the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus fully understood they were building prisons based on a kid's ability to read by third grade. So we put together a framework that, quite frankly, the city of Norwalk has now implemented in all of its elementary schools and getting phenomenal results that the entire state is looking at. Right? So I've been on the cutting edge of getting things like that done. In fact, our 2008 education reform, I made certain that we were one of the schools that was included, one of the districts in the commissioner's network, that we would maintain a priority district school, so that we're getting funding, targeted funding, based on the fact that, regardless of the fact we're in a wealthy town in terms of grand list, we have a population that's underserved and not financially stable. But there's a lot that needs to be done here. So I yet have some concerns. And the reason why, I tell everyone, I would be your education mayor.
Excellent.
Long before I ran for the Board of Ed, for at least 20 years, I was a public advocate.
Right.
And that's what afforded me to get a job as the district's human relations director, which focus was on diversity.
Excellent.
Okay, and making sure relationships for everyone. One of our greatest strengths of our city is our diversity. However, I'm here to say that unfortunately, we do not support that diversity as well anymore. I've always said you've got to be deliberate. Fortune 500 companies are deliberate. We need to do the same. And that's why we've got this income gap, because we are not being deliberate about that. We're not supporting those things. I want to make certain that that happens. I also want to make certain that a strategic plan that we have right now to build our schools, and I know we need to do that. However, the way it was done last year was not transparent. It was not inclusive. It really didn't take a look at how do we take a look at all of our schools if we're going to go to school choice and include all stakeholders in determining how should we do that. Instead, it was just determined we're going to pick these two schools, we're going to add a couple. There was a bunch of meetings that were held, not even in public. It wasn't until I, as a state representative, should not have had to do this with a bunch of other community members, demanded, and we started having the meetings to educate the community. Under a Mayor Morris regime, that would not be the case.
And I think if you wouldn't mind talking about that a little bit more, of people that may not totally understand the school choice issues. What I always liked about that particular issue is the empowerment to the parent. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, the involvement of parent, that's really important, because that's what we did out of the Education Reform Act of 2008. We gave parents more power to actually make budget decisions and things like that. So when you start taking a look at this strategic plan, it is important that parents have real voice. The original plan that the board came out was that they were just going to bring back all the kids who in our district we call 99s, or the kids that are poor, that live in South Norwalk, predominantly Black and Latino. We're just going to bring them back to a school in South Norwalk because people felt that we're a majority minority district. My question was, hold it. You're going to bring them back. What additional resources are you going to give them? None.
Right.
It's just like they're going to be glad to come back and know that they don't have to get on a bus. I said, listen, I've got a bunch of kids from the farthest part of town that are coming to a magnet school where there's Blacks, whites, Latinos, Asians. They're voluntarily doing that. There's plenty of resources.
Oh, can I just add to that, Bruce? Because you're so right. I mean, the whole concept of school choice is to, make sure that the community, as we see the community, gets to get to know each other, especially as young people, to share the daily lunches together, to be educated together, to break bread together, to have conversations with one another. That's what I love about that.
You understand it so well, Speaker.
If you're going to continue just to say, okay, school choice, but you stay in your neighborhood, we'll stay. Come on.
That isn't leveraging or acknowledging your diversity.
Of course it's not.
As Human Relations Director, I can tell you, I have people that I've met, parents, who said they moved from Greenwich, New Canaan, very wealthy communities, to come to Norwalk because they knew that our schools are integrated. Exactly. That's the best thing that happens. And it's only when you have parents that feel empowered.
Correct.
And quite frankly, when you have a diverse group of parents, those parents that are more affluent, more educated, they'll stand up for the entire population until you get other generations to learn how. And by the way, I need to share this. I'm about empowerment. As Human Relations Director, I made certain that we had a growing Latino population. I personally went out and got grants for a program called People Empowering People. Why? I understood that these Hispanic parents that may not know the language very well, the program was done in Spanish. Excellent. They needed to understand how they could advocate for their kids and have civic skills. I transitioned from that into another state-run program, Parent Leadership Training Institute, because I'm so vested in making certain that all the members of our community respect one another and understand how to work with government. And government can be responsive to them.
You're making me also think of the Black and Latino caucus right now. Mm-hmm. Obviously through all my years, 18 years up in Hartford, I've always had a very good caucus. But I have to tell you, as an observer, watching that caucus, the Black and Latino caucus, during the budget negotiations and other issues. I've never seen that caucus so united, working with each other in order to say, listen, we're part of this Democratic caucus, but we have issues that you need to hear and how we can together resolve them. And you're not afraid, and I remember you, Bruce, when you were head of it, saying, you know what, they're not listening, and you walked out. That takes courage, political courage, and I commend you for doing that. Now, as a former speaker, I don't know if I would have liked it as a former speaker, but I do respect it, and I do respect people fighting for what they believe in. I always say, if you're fighting for what you believe, you may get angry, you might be upset. Why did they do it? Why did this guy do this? The bottom line is, I know why. Because you believe in what you were doing, and you know it was right.
Yeah, you know, sometimes decisions are made for political expediency. But as a Black and Puerto Rican caucus, we recognized we had an argument that was on the table to tell people, if our budget's so bad, it's because you keep doing the same things over and over again. You need to be proactive. So as you know, much of the policy that we did was about being proactive, about lifting people out of poverty, about honoring people's rights. And I'm so glad that between you and many of the members in the Senate, regardless of where people came from, they heard the message and understood. You want to cut your budgets? Listen to the Black and Puerto Rican caucus is saying, we know what best needs to happen, education and other policy.
Yeah, and you know what, before we wind down here, Bruce, if you don't want to allow me to just elaborate on that, I think a lot of people, you know, they don't really understand what's at stake here. If you don't have a good house, a good roof over your head, if you don't have a good meal in the morning, you are at such a disadvantage as a young person. If you go to school hungry, if you go to school tired, that is such a disadvantage, and that poor child constantly has to play catch up. What you've been trying to do, and many others that are supporting those issues, especially our Democratic colleagues, is that we need to understand that there are needs. Fill the needs, fill the gaps, and what you're going to do is save a ton of money in the long term, in order to save money down the road, taking care of these children.
Can I interject?
Please.
I've always said our greatest asset as a state is our intellectual capital.
Absolutely.
So we do ourselves an injustice when we deliberately, or by a matter of neglect, we systemically make certain that people intellectually are deprived. So our greatest thing, if that is our greatest asset, we need to make sure that everyone reaches their full potential.
Fantastic.
That's the best way to save taxes in the long run.
I totally agree with you, and I've seen it. I saw it as a legislator, I saw it as a leader, and we proved down the road that we saved it.
We're saving a ton of money right now, regardless of how bad the state looks. Based on policy we've done in the last 10, 11 years, we are saving this state a ton of money. And we're positioning people to become great assets. And guess what? Employers want to come with an well-educated population.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Well, you just heard some other great ideas and things that all of us as citizens and as elected officials should be fighting for, and that is economic justice, making sure all our children have the level playing field in order to succeed in life. So thank you for listening. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a few. Thank you so much. and this is the award-winning show, Then and Now. We continue our conversation with Deputy Speaker Bruce Morris, who's running for mayor of the great city of Norwalk, and someone that I certainly am learning a lot from here in our last couple of conversations. Bruce, we talked about housing, we talked about education, and we started talking a little bit also about, standing up and fighting for things you believe in. Being the speaker, what I used to enjoy most is when we were behind closed doors. Now, I know when people hear that, because they hear all the behind closed doors, but the reality is that's where a lot of the work is done. It's where all of us come together as a full caucus and we have an open dialogue. Sometimes the dialogue, as you know, can be very rough, but we're a family in there.
That's right.
And as a family, we have to make decisions together. We have to be as fair to as many people as we can, but educating one another on our districts and our needs is the most important. Can you elaborate once again on what happened during the last session and what happened in the caucus? Okay. I think it'd be interesting for the viewers to know.
Yeah, very good, Mr. Speaker. So, for the longest time as a caucus, for decades, our primary issues focused around education, making certain we had educational equity and judicial reforms, because that's where we've had so much injustice. It was always those two things.
Right.
But going into that last session, we realized, particularly with the recession of 2008, that this was a time for the state of Connecticut to do things differently, because everyone was losing. And our biggest concern was, hey, listen, we need to focus on economic equity, because a lot of our problems, the taxpayers are worrying about cutting social services and all these things that would hurt our communities the most. And our position was, listen, we've never been empowered. We don't want to be in a position where people are giving a hand out. We want a hand up. So a third leg to the stool became important, which was called economic equity.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, people didn't want to move down that way. So it was those private conversations when you have with the full caucus, with the speaker, the leadership, to say, listen, this is this important to us that you're going to call these bills. It needs to happen. The other side is willing to filibuster for whatever is important to them. We will filibuster. We will do this, because this is the real answer for the state of Connecticut. One of those things that was on the table for economic equity was the fact that the state of Connecticut spends billions of dollars in development all over the state, but sends billions to cities, and that money was exempt from what's called a small business set-aside. America's business, Connecticut's business is business. But women, minority businesses, disadvantaged businesses were not full stakeholders in that discussion. So we decided we're going to stop until you're going to deal with our excessive police force bill, which was important to us. We're going to deal with this economic equity piece. We want our state set-asides, and we did that. So that's what happens behind the scenes for people to know. The conversations happen where there may be one side is saying no, 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 and we had to put our foot down. But that segues into where we are right now, and why, again, it's so important that I am running for mayor. And one of the reasons I'm running, because you know what? We got that done 2 years ago, actually going on 3 years ago now. The city of Norwalk, its plan, its vision for what it's doing for small businesses, minority and women businesses, it isn't good to say, well, the Chamber of Commerce has scored and the Chamber of Commerce is doing something. Cities need to be more deliberate. I actually gave them the tool. I said, you've got to do this. You must do this. I will make certain the cities do this. In fact, we put aside $25 million worth of bonding, $5 million for a revolving loan fund for small and minority and women-owned businesses. I brought the businesses that will actually fund this to the city of Norwalk. I am proactive in what I do. Now, this segues into the direction for the city of Norwalk, because it's about empowering, lifting people out of poverty. Sometimes the best way to get affordable housing is to raise the wages of the people who are working. So we're doing over $1 billion worth of development. I got a plan. It's called Norwalk First. All right. Other cities do this. Right now, we just do things to raise a grand list, and we figure property taxpayers, you're going to be happy. No, let's go to my plan. You know what? You're going to set aside a certain amount of that work. It's going to be for businesses that are locally owned, Norwalk-based businesses, small businesses, women-owned businesses. We have more single moms that certainly could run a business today and need that opportunity to lift up their standard of living. That helps to lift up a standard of living for those kids, and it will give better outcomes for them in school. Lift up our minority businesses that are sitting there just barely squabbling by. Give them joint ventures. These are people that want to work. then money now stays in the city of Norwalk. Workforce development, because small growth economic development is an actual model that I believe in. You have to consider business development, workforce development. So we'll do the same thing with your workforce. Preferential treatment for people who live in the city of Norwalk to work on these jobs. And the biggest thing is, it all has to do with how does this affect the quality of life? You consider all three of those things. That's my Norwalk First plan. It is one that takes what I've learned in the state. It takes the tools that I know that are in the state. I know where to tap in to get the money. I don't have to send someone else to go get it for us. I am the guy, and I've got that vision.
And I think that the vision and the experience is so important. This isn't to knock anybody in political office, but when you have the experience of being able to deal with leaders in the state, whether they be Democrat or Republican, you've had that sort of respect up in Hartford. When you can take that, I would say, opportunity of being a leader, an opportunity of being a legislator, and then bring that back home and run for mayor. And you've also served on the municipal level. You combine those two, nobody, I think, could match you as far as who's running now of having that sort of experience.
Speaker, you said it very well. I am the only candidate who can say that, you know what, I've been a leader. I've actually initiated many things I've talked about today. I've been the initiator of. Not the current leadership. They do the best that they can do. But how many things have already been started that they're just continuing on and not working well, and there's been no change? Bruce Morris has demonstrated that I'm a change agent. I don't take a look at things that are status quo and say they're okay. I find out where it's leaving someone out, what can position us better for 10 years from now. So I am that leader. I've led our Black and Puerto Rican caucus, and when I did that, we reached across the aisle. Much of the legislation I've gotten done is nonpartisan. Yes, I'm a Democrat, but I reached across the aisle with everything.
Let me just add to that.
And we need new leadership now.
Yeah, you're right. And let me tell you, and I know we're getting close to the closing here, but the reality is, when you go and you talk to people, I guess something's coming to my head right now. I was blind and now I see. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is, if we all just take the time to listen to one another.
Yes.
And I've done it 1,000 times, not understanding where a legislator's coming from. Then sit down with that legislator and I go, I get it. I get it. And that's what's important, Bruce. So if you want to say a couple of closing statements on that, we'd love to hear that.
Well, I'm glad. I'm good. And I thank you for that. And that's why I'm so proud of the fact that I'm Deputy Speaker of the House and have the respect that comes with that. And I thank God that I'm respected by both sides of the aisle. People come to me all the time and say, you do so well, because they know that I listen. Right now, we have a government that does not listen. We have common council members that are voting on issues, and they're publicly saying, gee, you want me to raise $500,000 for an architect for schools? I don't even have the information, and they're forcing it through. That isn't good government. That's poor leadership. I'm not that kind of leader. I'm inclusive. I believe all stakeholders need to be involved. In Norwalk, vote for me. Your voices will be heard. Your views will be heard. We'll come together in consensus of what gets us towards a Norwalk that we all believe in. We're a diverse city. I want to fight for Cranberry, Silver Mine with its great arts guild. I want to build up our Wall Street area, make all this interconnectivity with our TOD, our South Norwalk. I'm for the entire city of Norwalk. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Bruce. And I have to tell you that, I've gone to Norwalk many times over the last, 15 years. And I think the city of Norwalk is a wonderful city. But I must tell you that just like when you see something that looks good, you can make it better. And I know that this particular leader, someone that I serve with, someone that I admire, someone who family I know, will do a great job for the city of Norwalk as their mayor. I hope you come out November 7th and vote. Please do. Your vote means something. It's important that you vote. I want to see you vote for Deputy Speaker Morris, but we want you to go out. This is a privilege as an American citizen to vote. And don't say that your vote doesn't count. It does. And if you come out to vote, and if you tell your friends to come and support Representative Morris, you will have Bruce Morris as your next mayor. Thank you so much again for tuning in to See Then and Now. I'm Speaker Jim Amann. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.